The way this saw is right now is the way you should leave it when you're done. Laid down and locked in non-sliding mode or in chop mode. Okay, this is the way it should be when you leave it, and it should be when you approach it. Okay. All right.
I was just pointing out those settings there.
And the light should be off. I'm not only concerned about the light because it's not damaging anything if you happen to leave the light on overnight. I mean, it's not. There's not a battery. You're not pulling anything. You're just pulling power.
Here's the button's right there.
Yeah. The button.
Some people want to.
Yeah. So a lot of people use it. I never use this. It's not accurate enough for me. So, but that's. A lot of people use it. It works.
You talked about the sliding feature. You're going to demonstrate
I'm
that?
going to demonstrate that right now. Okay. All right. So obviously everybody should know how to put the blade up. You have to push it down a little bit. Pull this post out, right? None of this should be new to anybody. And it comes up. The sliding feature is controlled over here on this side. And everybody wants to come over here and look. Right here, this. A lot of times I come in and it's like this. Okay? That's not what that's for. That prevents the slide from stopping. Okay? You put that up and now it slides. Okay? The reason I want it in non-sliding mode is I don't want anybody to be surprised. I don't want anybody to turn the thing on thinking that it's not sliding and then it comes forward on you and it could be a dangerous situation. Okay, so everybody should start in the same spot. Now, occasionally over here, there's a depth spot. It's a depth gauge, okay? I've never used it. If you want to learn how to use it, you can look in the owner's manual. But somehow, once in a while, that gets flipped forward. It now cannot be locked down. It doesn't go far enough down so you can't lock it. A lot of times you get a call or somebody will ask me, why can't I lock it? And that's because somebody has, nobody's doing it on purpose. Nobody's touching it, but it's very loose and you can't tighten it. By design, you can't tighten it because it's meant to move back and forth. And somehow, maybe they're cleaning it. You got the vacuum in there, what have you, and somehow it gets flipped down. So that has to be back, and now you can lock it in place. Okay. Now, in general, and I'm going to be giving you some pointers that are my personal deal. You might find somebody who's got 35 years of experience that'll disagree with these, but these are my personal perspectives, okay? If possible, you should always use the chop mode instead of the slide mode. Okay, it's safer. You're not inviting binding of the blade. Okay, so let's talk about that. And I have to admit that after reading the owner's manual, it disagrees with me, and I disagree with it. So I'm going to give you both perspectives, and you can do whatever you want. Okay, so here's a piece of wood that obviously has a good crick in it, right?
Yeah.
Now, typically we tell you to go to the hardware store, and when you bring it in, the first thing you want to do, like I trained on other things, is chop. You cut things to length plus a little bit, all right? And it generally is not straight. Okay. Now I always felt that you would push that piece so that you have two places of contact. To me, that's a safer way of doing it, right? The problem with that is if you slide it in there, you're going to make a kerf in the wood right there. And as you get closer to the edge, now that kerf will, because there's nothing supporting the back here, that kerf will come together and bind the blade. It's happened a lot, okay? Now, if you chop it, you're not going to have that problem. If you slide it, you will have the problem. Okay, that's why I inaccurate cuts, all right? Because we don't care about that. All we're trying to do is cut things to length, okay? Now, if you have something that a chop will give you 8 inches, A slide will give you 13. So if you have something that's wide, you don't have any choice but to slide, okay? You can flip it over, again, if you're not looking for accuracy, all you're trying to do is cut things down to a reasonable size so then you can, you know, mill your wood, okay? Now, the owner's manual, and I didn't know this until I opened it up and looked at it for this demo, they recommend, okay? And the reason they say is to prevent it from binding, okay? And it will prevent it from binding.
Right.
But, see what's happening?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you, and I have a picture here of exactly what they're telling you to do. You can see it, both ways, and they put a big cross against that, the way I'm telling you to do it.
Do they suggest clamping it at all?
Well, we'll get to clamping in a minute. But see, clamping isn't gonna prevent the binding. Because all the clamping does is to hold it down.
Okay.
Okay, it's not gonna prevent the binding. All right? So, see how, right? And if you turn this, see how much stabler that is?
Yeah.
I like it stable. I want it, right? So you do what you want, knowing the issues. Because I really can't say go against the manual, but I sort of am. Now, a couple of videos I've watched on milling in general, they suggest to start with a jigsaw. If you got 12-foot pieces and you're trying to cut down to 2-foot or 3-foot or what have you, instead of bothering with this, use a jigsaw to cut everything to length. Okay? Then you don't have any of that problem. But
Also, if it's a shortcut, you can use a bandsaw.
yeah, you can use a bandsaw as well. Again, the only objective we're trying to do is get it down to the smaller length so then you can mill your wood. Okay? If you're looking for accuracy, at this point, you should have a flat edge. So it doesn't make any difference, right? Okay? So, for whatever it's worth, that's my story. I'm always going to chop if I can, and I'm going to keep 2 points on the fence. That's just me. Yeah, as I said, you can chop, you'll get 8 inches. It goes actually more than 8, and if you slide, you get a little bit more than 13.
So when you cut it though, you're not gonna have a square angle, are you
Oh,
gonna?
no, you're not looking for
You're
accuracy.
gonna you slide it back and cut a square on it?
Well, so then, after you, so, again, the whole, the only, what I'm trying to get to is, you're milling a piece of wood, it's 12 or 16 feet long. First thing you wanna do, as I said when we milled wood, is to cut things approximately to length. Once it's to length, then you take it over there and you create an edge there, right? You get it on a joiner, and, or the table saw, you get a nice flat edge. Okay, a couple of safety things that people tend to cut corners on. After you've made your cut, stop the blade and hold it down until the blade stops. If you lift it up during the cut, particularly if you've now cut maybe 2 inches out of there, the blade's gonna pick that thing up and it's gonna go flying. Trust me, I've seen it happen. Okay? I mean, if you're just trimming a little bit off, you can probably get away with it, but get in the habit of cutting it and letting the trigger go and wait for the blade to stop. When you approach the saw, don't assume that it's at 0 degrees. It happened to me. Somebody, they for some reason had it moved and they forgot to move it back into the 0 degree. That's just, I mean, I literally cut 25 pieces of wood. And it turns out it didn't hurt me at all. I was cutting them pieces longer than I needed, so I was able to go back. But no, it's not a happy camper at all.
I've also noticed, Richard, if you forget
Yeah.
to push this down, you can have a problem with cutting like this. It could feasibly move, but
Yes.
that's a lock. That's what that's for. That locks it.
This should be down for every cut.
Yeah.
No matter whether
People
you're
forget that.
whether you're in a predetermined set or not. By the way, that's my next point.
Yeah.
And then this nobody should be surprised at this. Never freehand. Your piece of wood should be against the fence at all times. Okay. Now, repeatable cuts. A lot of times I get my equipment, I want to make 14 6-inch pieces or what have you. That's what this thing here is for. Okay? And we have two styles, and they fit in this groove right here. Okay? And then as you move forward, you obviously, the distance between here and here is a lot more than 4 inches. So in here we have two pieces of wood that you would use to push against that piece. Okay? Depending on how long you want, but I use both of these, okay, to get repeatable cuts. The other problem is, don't cut pieces on here that are too short. There are, actually what I recommend is if it's 2 inches, 3 inches, something of that nature, use the
Sled.
sled, thank you. The crosscut sled on the table saw. Okay, you can get repeatable cuts on that, but it's got a hold down. You can hold that thing down, and your fingers aren't near the blade at all. Okay. Now, speaking of a hold down, this saw does have a hold down. It is a pain in the butt, but it can be used, and I'm going to demonstrate how to get it on there. First thing you have to do is remove the fence. And the only way to get that out is to loosen that back thing enough so that you can this out there, like that. See the little knob back there? It's got to go all the way out, and this comes out. Now you can fit this into the hole here, turn it around so that it locks itself in place. As I said, this is a pain, but sometimes it's the best thing to do to prevent an accident. You got it. Somebody's used this since the last time I tested this out. So I'm moving this up so it'll clear that fence. Okay. And now you can use this and this to hold on your piece of wood. If your piece is not too high, you don't really need to put this back on. But if it is, you have to slide this back in, like this, and then lock this in place. Okay?
So you would saw it vertically instead of horizontally?
You can do it either way. So in this case, let's assume that this is a short piece of wood. You would fit that in here like this. And hold on to the wood. Okay. If it was vertical, obviously it's got to be far enough out to. Well, this you can do that. Okay. So a lot of times people don't realize that's in there, and when they do, they scratch their heads for trying to figure out how do I get it in there so it works, because unless to me it's a design issue. They should have made that a lot easier to put on and off. But
Another thing that I've noticed, Richard, I'm right-handed, and when I cut, I like to go like this. I'm very uncomfortable this way. You can also put the hole down over here.
yes, you can.
And
Do the
that
same
really
thing.
helps
Yeah.
a person that is left-handed,
Yeah.
for example. That's what I need to say.
Yeah. The owner's manual will tell you not to cut like this.
No.
Well, you know what? You can't avoid it. You really can't.
There's some cuts you have to make.
But the length, the length of piece of wood that I would recommend over here is longer on this side than it is on this side. Okay? Here you can get 4 or 5 inches. I'd be comfortable with making that cut. Over here I want 7 or 8 inches. Okay? Simply because of what's going on. This saw has the ability to do a compound cut, which means I can cut it this way and then tilt the whole thing at the same time. I don't recommend you do that. If you want to do it, I can help you show you how to do it, but turning this saw is it's a bear. It's very heavy. It's kind of hard to control. There's been a couple of times on my own personal side, the same saw only it's 10 inches. I've done it, but I didn't like it. So I would avoid it if you can.
So you use a table saw?
There's a couple different ways you can use a table saw. If you really have to do it, I can show you how to do
I
it.
can also show you how to do it, but it's not easy.
Yeah, we do have what do you call it, sled,
Yeah, that would.
with, that you can actually tilt the blade on the table saw.
And then use the miter gauge at
And then-
an angle.
yeah.
You have the steel going this way and the blade going this way. So you can do it. In my mind, you look at the situation you want to do and try to, because they're all different, and try to figure out the best and safest way to do it. It could be here, it could be over there, or it could be, do something else. Highly recommend if you use this, I don't know what you would call it, this, what would we call it?
Spacer,
This, hold on. This allows you to put the piece of wood on the surface, cut through the wood, okay, without having a piece of wood having, hanging off and dropping down. This keeps everything in there. So I recommend you use this. The two long pieces are stored in the, next to the tall cabinet, and the short pieces are stored underneath there. Okay? And every once in a while, you can see how it gets beat up, but just make a new one. Okay? Actually, Wayne said that we could just flip the whole thing over.
Yeah.
Get a little more life on it.
yeah.
Now,
Also, people might not know, this is the box for the track saw, and it's kept right under Richard right there, if you're looking for it.
Now, these tracks are stored on the wall back there, okay? For a long time, people were storing them with this edge down. This edge is a piece of vinyl that was cut the first time we used it by the saw that gives you the accuracy that you need. You line that piece of vinyl up with your line, and that's